First of all, I'm welcoming you to this room and how honored I am to be here. And Noel, thank you for the lovely introduction. And I have to tell you, the feeling is reciprocal because I had an opportunity to be here in South Africa in the 90s. And I'm a US-based professional speaker and trainer. I walk in both worlds. I do keynotes and I do training sessions and have so for 30 years. So I have a lot of miles on my tires. I'm only 26, but look what the stress has done. Okay. It requires a lot. And with that, I have had an opportunity to observe many different groups in many different locations around the world. So I'm bringing that perspective today, but with great humility. My husband and I, Dan, celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary back in the 90s. And we celebrated it in Johannesburg when I was invited to do keynotes in Johannesburg, Durban, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and I was blown away. I know that South Africa has remarkable resources. You have Africa, you have big game, you have safari, you have wine, incredible food, and diamonds. Dan used to work at the Gemological Institute of America. Jesus, diamonds. You'd think I'd have something big here. No, he knows too much about diamonds. All about diamonds. Oh yeah. So I said to Dan I could die tomorrow and be happy forever. To me, the people here in South Africa are the single greatest resource this country has to offer. I've never seen anything like it. And what do I mean by that? I mean the spirit of resiliency, the compassion, the camaraderie, the we're all in this thing together, we know we can do better, the fact that people come with a willingness and an openness to learn and absorb because they have a kind of humility that there's so much more to learn, it just blows me away because in the US, I don't know if you've heard, they already know everything already. So I'm dealing with that. So bring me to South Africa any day of the week because I love people who love to learn. And one of the things that Noel spared you about is my background. I started off as a classical pianist. Oh yeah, I was born a very shy, quiet person. And when you sit in the practice room all day long, you don't have to talk to anyone. Well, it worked out really well for me, and I love music, and that was going to be my life. And then life shifts. And there was that part of myself that I was unhappy about. I didn't like being a shy, quiet person. I thought, there's something in there. There's a wonderful book out there. I'd be really good at something if I just knew what it was. And I thought, it's in there, but I don't really know what it is. And then my life took this twist and turn, and I went to get a master's degree in education, and I started teaching school, little one, 6 years old. And my life took off from there, and then I had many different, what I would call, jobs. And if you have a job, you will always be just over broke. Now, I'm not motivated by money, but I needed to find something passionate to connect to. So that being said, I'd like to take you on a journey with me today. We have a very limited time, and as I was working on what will I tell these magnificent people today about my background, my filters, what I've learned that can possibly shed some new enlightenment on what you're doing, I eliminated most of the slides that had a lot of technical information. I'm the daughter of an engineer and I love that stuff. But today I want to share some stories with you because the stories are what people remember. I don't tell them to waste your time, I tell them because I want them to be a hook. I was telling Carol about the story that I remember a guy telling me about 10, 15 years ago. He was teaching safety. And I remember this story that he told about a guy who had made a mistake on the electrical lines and wound up in a bathtub full of blood and his wife's tears coming down his eyes because he had to look at her face and the suffering he had caused her because he wasn't being safe. That's the power of storytelling. So the first thing I'd like to do is to kind of level set and I'd like you to write down some kind of goal that you have for yourself for this morning. So on the paper that you now have, and if you don't have a pen, let us know, because I believe there are pens. Now this is a goal that you could write down for yourself, for your organization, a personal goal, a professional goal. Make it something that really matters, something that resonates, something that would excite you to get out of bed. That if you would accomplish this 1 year from today, you'd be really thrilled with it. All the goal experts say if you want anything to happen, step number 1 is to decide what it is and to write it down. So I'm going to give you a moment just to write down some kind of goal that you have, either for this morning or for the next year. And then we'll do our very best to satisfy that goal if it's something contained this morning. And I'm going to try to stick to our time. I can go on for days about this topic, and we're starting to get a little bit granular here in the middle of the room. Articulate, yeah, we're using surveys, we're using engaged treatments for... We can get down there into the grainy part of it if you'd like. All right. Everybody got something? If you can't think of anything, feel free to borrow your neighbor's goal. So, all right, if I were to come back and check on you next year, how many of you think that you'd be reaching that goal just because you wrote it down? Oh, we have a lot of optimists here in the room. Okay. Here's what an optimist is someone who goes after Moby Dick in a rowboat and takes the tartar sauce with him, right? Okay. What else do we have to do? We have to have some kind of plan. So next to the goal you've just written down, jot down the word plan, because that's what our focus is today, to give you a plan to actually pull it off. Let me ask you this. How many of you have ever set a goal before and you even have a game plan, but it still hasn't happened? There's one less missing link. Jot down the word motivation. Do we really want it to happen? And those 3 ideas together should equal our success. So let's take a look and see how these 3 ideas go together. The goal, your game plan, and your motivation. Just turn to the person sitting right next to you and show this person the kind of smile you would have 1 year from today if you were really achieving that goal. Nice. Hugging and kissing's allowed. Okay. Now, a lot of us are here in the education training business, and people tell me attitude and motivation is everything. And I thought about that one day. I said, you know, you can motivate an idiot, and what have you got? You've got a motivated idiot. It's not enough just to be motivated. You really have to know what you're doing today in the knowledge economy. We're all in that business together. And so let's get smart about what we're doing. I would say you've got the motivation. You're here. So let's take a look at what Cornerstone has. Dan, yesterday in the hallway, somebody was walking up or down the stairs with this t-shirt with these words. Ambition, motivation, dream, and success. Very similar. Goals, game plan, motivation. Is this something that's available in the store? I don't know, but it was similar to see, the philosophical approach to making dreams happen is right here. It's in the building. All right. Challenges to e-learning, or learning in general. I had a slide on here and I deleted it. It was full of all kinds of words. All right, all the things that we can come up with, big lists of things that are challenges to learning. And I want to narrow it down to one: human nature. Who is our biggest obstacle? We are our own roadblocks. It is the way we're wired. And we can go into, lack of our own personal leadership, lack of our own motivation to desire, and so much more. So I want to get real about who we are as human beings and talk about human nature. Now, we've all seen something similar to this. Desks, and people sit in desks and they're expected to absorb. And that is one way to learn, and it's a very efficient way to learn and not very effective. Agreed? Hands? Yeah. We've all been there. And take a look. Same setting. We've got bodies and chairs, but one person has brought a device. Oh, I can learn on my own even if I'm bored in the room. So I want to tell you a story, first of all, about a white paper that I ran into about 5 years ago. How many of you are either engaged with or shopping for or use a learning management system? Is there anyone in the room who's not yet familiar with an LMS? Just so we'll level set. Learning management system. This was a white paper that I saw 5 years ago, why your LMS isn't working. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. One of the reasons is because we have headstrong IT people that go in and say, I can make it do all these cool things. And it's not consulted with the people on the line. Right, Sandy? It's like, what do you really need this person to be able to do? How do we change behavior and culture? And how can we embed that into a technology so that people have the best of both worlds? So I was asked that question. And it's what I call click and test. When I spent a whole year answering the question of why training doesn't work, it's because I found that all the big players, SumTotal, Saba, you name it, they're all click on something, take a test, get a check mark, and you're done. And someone in an administrative office says, great, they're finished, done, on to the next. Compliance, great. You actually see no shift in any behavior. Why? Because of human nature. All right. The solution is blended learning. Now I'm going to take you back in time with me. My early experiences with blended learning. This was, oh my, how many years ago? I don't even know.
1992.
Thank you. The numbers guy. We have 2 kids. The joke is I say, one we put through college, the other one we put through a wall, okay? Dan and I are educators. Dan taught English, I taught first grade. And here we are with a failing student. Our daughter, Jillian, our youngest daughter, was failing school. How could this happen? This is like the fire chief who's raised an arsonist, you know, the butcher who's raised a vegetarian. Here we are, teachers with a failing student. Of course it has to happen, right? So Dan was reading the newspaper one day and found out that some baseball player, was teaching his kids at home. You can do that? Yeah, you can teach your kids at home. So Dan, the brilliant man, says, we're going to set up a private school in our home for one student, and we'll call it the Dan Riley School for a Girl. And Dan made up a little trifold brochure for her, put her picture on the front, and inside he had the school rules. Yes, you can teach your dad. Yes, you can wear your Pink Panther slippers to class. He would be the crossing guard, the cafeteria cook, the social studies teacher, the headmaster, and the year began. Now I know this because I was watching from the outside and I was very dubious. And I'm thinking to myself, this will never work. But of course I'm gonna be the positive support system. And he prepared for that first class, that first day for his one student as if he had prepared for 150 students. Same amount of work. But he decided to try to relate it to her personal experience and things that she liked. It would be making her favorite breakfast, bread dough, fried, dipped in powdered sugar and cinnamon. And it would spring a discussion about, well, where does bread come from? Well, we have this food and history book. Let's take a look. Where does bread come from? Who invented bread? Why the Egyptians? And they also invented beer in the weekends. Okay, Dad, now you're talking, right? And she waltzed into the kitchen. He said, I'm just going to have a Slim Fast today. All that planning, and now we've got human nature again. She's going to buck the system. She's going to fight it no matter what. But Dan knew that there was some hope for those early beginnings because by the end of that first class, she was dipping her donuts into the Slim Fast. It was a start. Now, how did they get to blended learning? They went off to Borders bookstore. Remember Borders? It was a bookstore. They went off every morning to Borders. They'd sit in the cafe, order cappuccino, hot chocolate, biscotti. They'd take the newspaper off the shelf. What's happening in the news today? Well, at that time, Russia was falling apart. Well, how does a country fall apart? I don't know. Let's find out. Let's get some books on that. Let's find out, well, if this country started, it had to start someplace. How did this country, meaning the US, get started? Let's go find out how you begin a government. What are the premises and the philosophies behind a good, sound government? So the school year began based on headlines and making it relevant to what's happening today in my life. And then they would go online. Now remember back when the internet started, I would try to load a page on my computer, and I had time to take a shower, brush my teeth, get ready for bed, get my pajamas, and come back and the page would load, right? And I thought, who in the world is gonna stay with us? But we do. Because if we want it badly enough, we will stick with it. And I know there are bandwidth problems here, we've run into them often enough, but I'm saying we've all been there with those issues. Hewlett-Packard, they wanted some software so badly. They waited years for the development of it because they wanted the outcome of what it would produce. And if we have that patience, and I know patience is one of the phenomenal virtues of the people here in this country, it's one of those resources that you have because people have waited a very long time for payoffs. Dan was reminding me, soccer. Big game here, right? It's not basketball. You have to wait for a very long time before you get a score. So it says something a lot about a culture of people who are waiting for a score. Good stuff. Well, Dan decided to write a book about it because he is a writer. And in this book, he describes the student. Now, see if this sounds like anyone you know. Jillian is a marvel of human complexity. She's equal parts fascination and exasperation, capable of startling insights and irritating short-sightedness. She can be grandly ambitious about the next 20 years of her life and astonishingly lazy about the next 20 minutes. She takes direction poorly, yet gives it confidently. She's often Little Miss Know-It-All, but harbors deep insecurities about her considerable abilities. She aches for the company of others, but can torch a relationship in an instant with a flash of temper or an unkind remark. She can and has inspired uncommon love. Now, I read that passage and I thought, well, yes, she has inspired something uncommon. And we're here today to talk about something uncommon. I want you to think of, isn't there a little bit of all of us somewhere in there? We can be grandly ambitious about what we want, and in the next 5 minutes, change our mind. We're incredible people to say, I want to lose weight, and then 2 minutes later we're ordering pizza, right? It's who we are, human nature. Now, we'll come back to this story later, but I want to explain to you that blended learning is something that we've always done until we tried to educate the masses and put them in chairs and channel them through without realizing we have the world as a resource. We have everything around us to use to enable us to engage learning and development of ourselves. And guess what happens? When you develop yourself, you affect the lives of others. Now, for those of you who like a lot of words and bullet points, this is for you. The worldwide market for e-learning reached 484 billion rand. That's $35.6 billion in 2011. The 5-year compound annual growth rate is estimated at 6.6%. So revenue should reach some 712 billion by 2016. So if you're interested in e-learning, it's growing with or without us, right? Done. Second, regions with higher growth rates. I found this tremendously exciting. Asia, not surprisingly, highest growth rate of 17.3%. Eastern Europe, 16.9%. Guess who's third? Africa. Not US. No. Africa at 15.2 and Latin America trailing behind at 14.6. What are the implications for you and your organization? If you're thinking about it or you're in it, stick with it, keep going. Because I'm telling you right now, from this story, I think I just turned it off, here we go. I want to tell you 2 success stories. I did 3 keynotes for a company, and it was all about customer service. And I said to the president at the end of these 3 keynotes, what are you really doing to support customer service? He said, I don't know. talk to our HR director. So I sat for a day with this woman, and she said, okay, I love your stuff. At this time, 3-ring binders this big, and she said, oh, we need all this content, but you're gonna have to put it online. We have 4,000 people. Now, I'm sitting there at the table, I'm really intimidated by these things, all of this stuff, and people used to ask me, what kind of computer do you have? And I'd say, beige. That's where I'm starting. But you know what? I'm thinking if other people can do it, maybe I could too. Maybe I could be just a little bit brave today and say, okay, one little baby step. Maybe I could learn it. So I spent that year answering why training doesn't work, started looking at a learning management system saying, wow, this is awful. It just doesn't fit human nature. Thank you. How can we blend learning with technology, which is very efficient, with the best of human nature? How can we exchange ourselves, merge ourselves together? Now, Green Mountain Coffee Roasters, Vermont-based, their stock went up 7,000% because they started doing right things right. They had spent $500,000 on a customized 5-day sales day training program. It was beautiful, everybody loved it, lots of claps and happy faces. And it failed within 3 months. Why?
Human nature.
There you go, thank you so much. Human nature, no one is there to track it, no follow-throughs, check marks, done, fine. Everybody's going back to old habits and routines. This was a scattered sales team all over the country. Nobody could keep track of it because they didn't have built-in for the measurements. They didn't have anything to keep it going. Now, when I came up with our solution at Chart Learning Solutions, I said, you know what, I'm just gonna do this from my perspective. I'm gonna fix my problems as a professional trainer. I don't want to leave that classroom and have everything go back to the way it was, because that's just a waste of everybody's time. And I always recommend to companies, if you're planning on bringing me in, and I'm just going to show up and throw up, right? That's kind of the way it is. You might as well take them out for dinner and a movie. You're wasting your time and your money. Unless we have some follow-through systems built in, don't even bother. It's not going to stick. You'll be lucky 5 to 10%, and then we all know that drop off. Along came Chart Learning Solutions with the solution I'm going to show you, really quick and simple, put $3 million on the bottom line within the first year. Now that was really nice because they had never seen a return on their investment. Let's take a look at Bellmark. Now Bellmark, we had some track record, we knew what we were doing, and Bellmark is a small Midwestern company in the Midwest in America, Wisconsin, really nice people. I said, if you do everything we ask you to do, you'll be very successful at this, and if you don't, you won't. I'm very frank with people now because I'm getting to that point in my life, I'm saying, I don't have any more time to waste, okay? Let's do this thing. Bellmark said, okay, we'll do it. They put $35 million on their bottom line within the first year. Why? Because they did what I asked them to. And I said, and the nice thing is the CEO got to get that buy-in at the highest levels. We all know that, so it can drive it down. Said, okay, this is going to be the way we come to work. And it's changed their culture, not in 10 years, but in 1 year. So let's take a look at what that really looks like. What is blended learning? Now, these are the elements that we've combined together. You can do many other things, but this is what we did here at Chart Learning Solutions. Somebody had said earlier, I think it was, yeah, we talked about assessments. Where are we now? That's a good place to start. We have online assessments. People take 10 minutes, they answer 60 to 80 questions. They're all based on all of the units within the e-learning, so you get a good printout, some immediate reports on where are we now, how are we doing. A hierarchy of strengths to those opportunities for development. And once those have gone through, then we can move to e-learning, assign them based on those priorities of learning. We have two elements that are our secret sauce. I don't want to call our platform a learning management system. Why? Because I'm going to be lumped into all those other categories. We call ours a training accountability platform. How cool is that? At the end of the day, we all want accountability. We want to be able to prove that somebody knows something. They can talk about it at the say and do level. And our platform is designed to have human interaction baked into the system, where you click and every learner is assigned a coach. You're not in the system alone. Collaborative learning is the way to go. And I don't care how you set up learning communities, one-on-one, buddy systems, mentors, you name it, you've got to have someone attached to you. Now, some people join a gym. How many of you have a membership in a gym? Okay. Some people are paying $200 a sit up, right? 200 Rand or whatever it is. They're paying a lot of money for going once and never going again. Well, if you have someone who's holding you accountable, not only for what you're doing today, but in the future giving assignments, it's much easier to work with human nature rather than against it. So, first and foremost, can you, with your learning system, assign someone, even if it's just a study buddy, you know, whatever it is, have 2 people come together. We recommend, if you're going to have learning communities, no more than a ratio of 10 people to 1 coach, no more than, because otherwise it's too unwieldy, it's too heavy. And then the performance assurance system is it's the process of moving through the platform that is the secret sauce. It guarantees that performance comes out at the other end. How do we do that? Well, because we have these things called AA meetings. Accountability Application Meetings. Meaning, if you've gone through some e-learning in your own time, you can go to the beach, you can sit and watch television, multitask. We don't care how you get access to your e-learning. Go on the platform, click on it. That's just step 1. Step 2 is get ready for your coaching meeting. You need to study. Study by yourself, study in small groups, whatever it is, but get prepared because you're going to meet with your coach. And the coach is going to ask you these questions. So we've rigged the system, everybody earns an A. It's being like a college student. You walk in on day 1 and how wonderful if your professor said, these are all of the questions you're going to be asked 6 months from today. You'll have 6 months to study these questions. This is the most important part. How many think you'd be scoring an A? Because you've already been told this is what you have to know. Yeah, so we want those successes. And I know from teaching young children, they need those positive drips of reinforcement all day long. Adults are no different. We're wired the same way. We want somebody to say, hey, great job. Who's going to say that? We all know at work, everybody's too busy to say, hey, great job. When was the last time you heard somebody say that? It doesn't happen. But when you have a coaching system built in, the coach's job, well, I'll show you in just a bit here. Coach's job is to give that positive reinforcement on a daily, weekly basis. It's a steady reinforcement. So if your motivation wanes, they're there to bolster you back up. Everybody needs that. Oh, jeez, I keep hitting the wrong button. Just a quick snapshot. We'll go into great detail on the learning tracks here, but I just wanted you to see the spiral in the center of the page. How are we doing? Okay. There's so much I want to share with you. This spiral is the chart of chart learning. It happens to be the spiral of continuous improvement. It is the way people learn. And just a little quick snapshot of how we've organized what we call managed accountability plans. So time management is a 1-day program. If you'd gone to a seminar or a workshop and you sat for a day, you'd go through those 5 units or modules within time management. We've said, look, if you want to learn time management, don't sit there for a day and go through it. Take one small, thin sliced bit per week. 30, 45 minutes on a Friday, 8:30 to 9:15. Take that and then do that. Follow your assignment, your application activity, and then add some more the next week. Add some more the next week. Because you know the expression, in 21 days, the threads of thought become the chains of habit. We change in about 30 days. It takes that long to change human nature. Thirdly, yes, you can have instructor-led. Yes, bring them into a classroom for experiences. Not for a lecture, not for PowerPoints with bullets, but give them something to do, a case study, a problem to solve, interaction, creativity. Throw them into the hot water. And then have them come out with what we call job aids or application activities. Now, these are interactive forms. You can get them from Adobe. This one, it just happens to be a sample of a job aid that we use. It's our leadership program on influence. These blue boxes here are actually interactive forms. So people can go through their tutorial player, And instead of just saying, okay, now I've taken a quiz and I'm going to get a check mark, now we're saying that's just the starting place. Now, complete an application activity. This would be like taking notes in a workbook, only guess what? You're putting it online. And it doesn't show it here, and we'll do this in our track. You'll see an email button. That assignment gets emailed to the coach, because when there's a second set of eyes on the work, what do you think happens to the quality of answers? It goes way up, because they want to look good. They want somebody to say, hey, you did a great job. So when they get that thing coming through Outlook or Lotus Notes and the coach looks at, takes about a minute to read through, speed read the answers. If the answers are skimpy, coach needs to write back and say, let's have that idea developed a little bit more. What about this? And ask a few questions. Good coaching is always about asking questions. The person will redo and email it back. You set that level of high expectation, you'll get it back. All right. Next is, well, on-the-job training. We have live coaching sessions. Once a month minimum. Sometimes they're once a week. Just depends on the organization how they want to set it up. Where people come together in those groups of 5 to 10 or whatever it is, where the coach is going to ask those pre-designed questions, and those people have studied their answers, because they have to be able to perform at the say and do level. If they can't talk about it, they don't know it, and if they don't know it, they're not doing it. They need to have what I call knowledge fluency. It needs to be something that's easy for them to articulate, and they need to talk off script. So the coach could say, what about this situation? So you can take any generic e-learn, I don't care if it's on YouTube or wherever it is, and you can say, how does this relate? How would the language change in our world? What about Old Mutual? What would we say here at Old Mutual, right? How could we tailor that? This is just a picture of some live coaches, real people, right here in South Africa. There they are. They're smiling. They're still happy, right? And then certifications, big deal here in South Africa. So collaborative learning communities, and people have a sense of, I get a stamp, I got a plaque, I got a piece of paper, I can put something on the wall, I did this, this is my prize. Because everybody wants to know that there's some kind of payoff, that intrinsic, yes, I've done a great job and now I have something to actually prove it. This is what delegates look like when they're actually engaged in blended learning. Yes, they can bring their devices. Doesn't have to be a laptop, could be a pad, could be a big mobile phone. But they're all smiling too. Why? Because they're learning together. It can happen. Now, I just want you to see that this spiral, which happens to be the core of CHART, is the spiral of continuous improvement. You begin at 12 o'clock. Where are we now? Right? What do I want? And you begin and you follow the path, and guess what? What's so beautiful about a spiral is that it creates a shape of boundaries without boundary. That's the paradox behind it, because it continues again, and you begin again in ever enlarged cycles of improvement. It's not about a destination. It's about how you're constantly moving through life as a learning experience. Now, I wanted to save a few minutes for questions and answers, but I just want to leave you with some of these ideas about why we're really doing this. When you look at your life and the probability of you being born, not many people get a chance to be here. There are statistics about winning the lottery in the US. The chance of you winning the lottery is trillions and trillions and trillions to 1. The probability of you being born is almost impossible. If you think of all the random permutations of how somebody actually is born and given a life and time, it's almost impossible. The question is, what are you going to do with that life and time? What's my contribution? What am I going to be leaving behind? What's my legacy? One of the things I love about Nelson Mandela, isn't it Nelson who said, you're playing it small, does not serve the world. Now, I don't care how small or how large that is. But the fact is that your existence affects the lives of others simply by you existing. Plutarch, a couple thousand years ago, wrote that what you achieve inwardly affects your outer reality. So the meaning of this is profound. You have an effect on others simply by existing. The question is, how are you going to do that when most of you here in this room are never even going to meet the people whose lives you affect? You don't get a chance to meet all those people who are clicking out on different things or meeting together. Well, it is your courage, your attitude, your commitment, your capacity for hard work, your patience, your intelligence, your eagerness to learn that give you, here in South Africa, a very unique status and influence in the world. Eyes will be watching South Africa. What are they doing? And how are they doing it right? If you choose to assert your passion and your commitment for excellence in all that you do, you can learn to transform the world. And I'm telling you right now, the shift is to these kinds of countries that are saying, we can do it, and we can do it better than anyone else. Because in some ways, you're starting with a blank piece of paper. And you build from there. I want to save some time for you to transform the world in the next 7 minutes. I want to leave some time here for questions that you may have. So feel free to ask whatever you would like. And we can get down to the tiny little grains of sand of things that keep you awake at night, a goal you've written down here. And I just want to find out from you, what question, if you were able to ask a question here this morning, what might that be? Here. Well, I have more. I have a whole thing at the end here, but.
There's more coming, so.
Right.
So I want to know that Lorna's going to be here for the rest of the day. And
Right.
the advantage we have of being a small group is that you will have the chance to encounter one.
Right.
So please rest assured about that. So,
Yeah.
questions I can help to choose.
Yes.
Manage the section. You've got
6 minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay, yeah. Think of some of the challenges you're facing with what you're currently doing, because there's a lot I had to delete. Yeah.
Lorna, I'm interested in global certification because it seems to me that, here in South Africa, we're reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
The first world countries are so far ahead in terms of e-learning and blended all. Yet because of our curricula,
Yeah.
we have to begin from scratch. And I'm just interested in what the conversations are globally around that, because I'm sure you must have, I'm sure there must be players who are looking towards that global certification in the global knowledge economy.
It's interesting because embedded within your question is sort of the answer. Interestingly enough, is there a certification for sales professionals? No. Is there a certification for leaders? No. Is there a certification for sales professionals? No. Someone can grab that brass ring. Now, we're at CHART, we've been discussing that because we want to create the standards of what it would mean globally to provide excellence in all of those 3 categories, because it's an enterprise-wide solution. But why not be the one that sets the standards? I mean, truly, when I was asked to go into blended learning and I'm looking at all these other large companies, big platforms, and I could say, oh, I'm going to do what you do, or I'm going to do what I want to do because it makes better sense. I think if you find, as in South Africa, there are kind of some nutty certifications that may or not be relevant, but because they're coming from big institutions that are unwieldy and unmanageable does not make them right. So I'm saying, because you are at this starting place, why not create a certification that is brand new through a nonprofit, and then it's a marketing effort. So it's a wide open territory. Now, we're certainly getting our certifications because in order to play the game, sometimes you just have to have it. Okay, done. But I'm also saying there's an opportunity to go way beyond what the minimum requirements are now. Not to say that the minimum requirements are easy. In fact, they're quite challenging. But nevertheless, we're up for the task, right? We kind of sort of have to. But that's just part of the game. I don't know if that really answered your question, but I'm saying let's be bold and brave and do it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Inspiring.
Go girl. Okay. Yes.
It seems to me that the distinctive nature of your system is the coaching element, the support element, apart from the quick and
Yes.
yes model.
Thank you. Yes.
In the LMS space.
Right.
You want to comment about the selection of those coaches? Are they subject matter experts? How do you prepare them for what is actually quite a critical task in the process?
Great question. Is everyone going to be a good coach? No. Some people are just not wired to be supportive. I don't know if this comes as news to you, but the selection, can they be trained? Sure. And people have different styles of communication. Coaching has to be supportive. There's a requirement. If they're trained properly, they can do it. And if they can ask questions, they can do it. We use a GROW coaching model. GROW, maybe somebody familiar with that, it's pretty simple. You're covering your goals for the G. The R is you're going to review what you've done. The O is what are the options in front of us, and the W, where do we go from here? So it creates a structure around a coaching event, if you will. But the kinds of coaches you're looking for are those that have an innate eagerness to want to help others and who love to teach and educate and are good support systems.
Have you heard of School in the Clouds?
Sorry?
Have you heard of School in the Clouds? There's a guy, there's a TED talk on it, you can Google it, but the concept is they put a computer in the middle of like rural India
Yeah.
in a wall. Just a screen. And they left the kids, and the kids figured it out. The kids were doing quantum physics.
Oh my goodness.
And if they didn't know, they would stop, pass by, and they ask questions. And then that model went to the point where the School in the Clouds is the encouragement that the kids get. So how do we keep kids learning? It's the granny thing. It's like,
Right.
you can do it, come
Yeah.
on, I know you can. And that whole thing that we do with kids when they're learning to walk, we don't say, oh, you idiot, you're never going to walk. We encourage them. And that whole concept of encouragement is what keeps the brain open to learning.
Thank you for bringing that up, because the coaching event is really just a beginning. When the coaches bring people together, a great coach turns the learners loose with each other. And that's when you get this collaborative learning. Jane at Bellmark, she is their super admin coach, and she works with the people at the line level, if you will. And on one Saturday, they'd run their sales teams through the sales training for 2 years, and they had tremendous success with it. Because one woman, she assigned different units to different people, saying, okay, I'd like you to come in and report in on confidence, and you're going to talk about time management, or something relative to what we call a Skill of the Month Club approach. So this one woman, her assignment was to talk about confidence in any situation. That was her job. And she talked about how she took the e-learning tutorial player, blah, 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 and related it to her life. And she told a story about how she became confident, got a standing ovation from her peers. That just doesn't happen. And it energized these salespeople in a way that they had never had before. Why? Because they're supporting each other. Then she had a customer service class, did project manage with it. This is one of the driest subjects in the world, but she made it come to life. She said to everybody, bring in a project you're working on, here are my expectations. They came in and she showed me a snapshot of it. She said, see that woman there? She never smiles. She comes to work every day. She's like the quicksand crowd. Everybody's going down with her. She's like a heavy person who's just negative. And there she was in the photo smiling. She said she was unleashed that day. Sometimes people feel like their jobs are just not big enough for the human spirit. And when you give them an opportunity to voice themselves, to share their knowledge and their creativity and their problem solving. And all of that, you can unleash that and amass that tremendous energy and bring it to work. You will stand back and let the amazement begin. It's the coach that is the catalyst for letting people have that collaborative learning experience.
And what's important also is that the coaching, we see that especially in the larger corporation, that either if it's many of the times that we have actually a coaching layer, so having people who are get that training and we provide that training also, or sometimes it's actually the manager, which would be the natural coach as such, but some is more manager than coaches, so it doesn't always work. And the third one is those companies who has a mix, some internal, some external, and then that's the fourth, using external coaches who are specialized in leadership and sales and so on to get the company growing. So all these models is there, and it's dependent on each and every company. And of course, if you have more internal coaches, you get a very good ROI initially, of course. If you have external coaches, you will also get a good ROI by a little bit heavier start investment.
Right. Okay, I just want to, thank you, Peter. I want to put a ribbon around our program this morning so far and just tell you the quick epilogue to the Dan Riley School for a Girls student. Yes, it did save her, but the most important thing about that experience for her was that she learned to love learning. And it was no longer drudgery, sitting in a classroom. And it ignited her passion. I don't know if you've heard of the Peace Corps. We have a Peace Corps in the United States, and she decided to go into the Peace Corps and go to Thailand. And you have to choose a project there. And she said, well, I don't know what to do. But she went into the school systems and realized they had no lesson plans for teaching English in the Thai schools. The teacher would show up and say, what do you want to do today? So she decided her assignment would be to create curriculum plans, lesson plans for actually going into a classroom and doing an 8-week program and teaching English, or a year-long program. So suddenly teachers had a structure. And I'm happy to say when she came out of that experience, she got in a car and just tried to decide, where am I going to live now? She wound up in Savannah, became a school teacher, and now she's gotten her master's degree teaching teachers how to use technology in the classroom. She has creative craft days, bring your device, and they do special things with all of the devices so that these kids are completely engaged at these early levels and completely wired into blended learning. They know more about this than we do, so we can learn from these people. I want to leave you with what I call a recipe for living smarter, and that is no one will get out of this world alive. Therefore, resolve to maintain a reasonable sense of values. Take care of yourself first. Good health is everyone's major source of wealth. Without it, happiness is almost impossible. Resolve to be cheerful and kind. People will repay you in kind. Avoid angry, abrasive people. They're generally vengeful. Avoid zealots. They're generally humorless. Resolve to listen more and to talk less. No one ever learned anything by talking. Be tender with the young, compassionate with the aged, sympathetic with the striving, and tolerant of the weak and the wrong. At some point in your life, you will have been all of these. And do not equate money with success. There are many successful moneymakers who are miserable as human beings. What counts most about success is this. It is not the length of your life or the depth of a grave, but how we are measured is by the love that we gave. I want to thank you for being here.